And let's have a little look at the cash book and the Nominal Ledger modules in Sage 200 version 2016. Okie dokes. So I'm going to start off with the cash book. We've got our bank account list there, and as I say, what I want to focus on within this module is the new bank reconciliation screen. What Sage have done is they've listened to user feedback, and what they found is that people are coming from Sage 50 to Sage 200 found the Sage 200 bank reconciliation quite restrictive. So they've modified this to make it look and feel a little more like the Sage 50 bank reconciliation process. Now when you go into the bank reconciliation, you select the bank account that you're wanting to reconcile. At the top half of the screen here, we enter our statement date. You can enter a page number. The opening balance is the closing balance from our last statement, reconciliation that we ran, and we can type in the end balance. So we can type in the balance that's at the end of our bank statement. I'm going to put in there 119,234. That will be fine. The top half of the screen then looks like the bank reconciliation did in the older versions of Sage 200, whereby you just highlight any transaction that you're wanting to reconcile and you click in the little box. The new feature that's now available is this button here, the Match Checked Items. When you select that, it will move those items that you've matched at the top half of the screen to the bottom half of your screen, and it provides a clearer visibility of those transactions that you've matched against your statement. As you saw, I just ticked on a transaction and selected Match Checked Items. The other options, if you double click on a transaction, it will automatically bring that down to the matched items. We also have this button here, Add or Remove Query. So to add a query, we just click on that button, put query details in there, and it's showing in yellow on our bank statement. To clear a query, we just highlight that line, select the same button, select Clear, and OK. So it's as simple as that to add queries and provide that visibility of any issues that we may have with that particular transaction. At the bottom half of the screen here, okay, although we've moved the matched items to the bottom half of the screen, we just need to select everything, and we can see a selected balance. So we can see the balance of the transactions that we are going to reconcile as part of this process. We also have the ability to unmatch selected items. So if we selected a transaction by mistake, we just highlight it, unmatch it, and it moves back up to the top half of our screen. You still have the find features available to you. You can still select everything and clear everything. Those buttons remain the same. The bottom half of the screen here as well, we can see the difference. So we've got our matched balance, our projected end balance that we typed in at the top of the screen, and hence we can see that there's a difference. So we can go back and we can confirm where the difference is and continue with our bank reconciliation. You also still have the ability to add transactions on the fly, so we can still add nominal receipts, nominal payments, customer receipts, and supplier payments. So once we've finished our bank reconciliation and we're happy with our selection, we just select everything and we select Reconcile. Again, sorry, you can still save a draft reconciliation, so it would save where you are, and you can open up that draft at a future date if you're in the middle of a reconciliation and you're called away. So if I just select Reconcile, okay, 2 reports are produced. It's our unreconciled transactions and a list of our reconciled transactions. Okay, so you can file those for your records. So that's a nice new feature or an improvement to the cash book reconciliation that's been brought through in the 2016 version of Sage 200. Okay, we're now going to move on to the Nominal Ledger. And as I say, I'm not going to tell you how to create an account. I'm not going to tell you how to enter a journal. We're going to be looking at some of the more obscure options that are available to you. So first of all, within our nominal accounts, we have the option to generate new accounts. Now, if we were to select that, this is particularly useful for people that are using cost centers and departments. We just defined the new nominal code, so 001 will be fine. We give it a name, new account, define what category it's going to be in, So where in our P&L or balance sheet we want that to go. And then we just fill in the rest of the details. Do we allow manual journal entries? Do we want to display the account balance in the nominal selection box? And do we want to use batch posting? For those of you that are not aware what that means, is if we're posting transactions from our sales order processing module through to the sales ledger, then on our debtors control account, if that were ticked, we would just see the one transaction for the total balance. We wouldn't see the individual transactions that make up that posting. So it's not a button that we use or an option that's used very often, if at all. Keep transactions for however many months we want to do so. And now if you notice, I've got a next button. And here I can determine which cost centres are relevant for that particular new nominal code. So maybe it's only for my Birmingham, London, Manchester and Scotland cost centres that it's relevant for. Again, we've got a next button, and again I can determine now which departments it's relevant for. So I'm going to say it's for my bespoke kitchens and my kitchen components. Now when I go to next, I get a list of all the accounts that are going to be created when I select the Finish button. So just by entering the details once for my code 0001, I'm actually going to be creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different nominal accounts with that combination of cost centres and departments. If I now finish, it goes and creates them, and refresh my list, you can see there that those accounts have all been created. Okay, now also within the nominal accounts, we have this option here to enter a new nominal report category budget and amend a report category budget. And what this enables us to do is just check that we have entered our budgets accurately against each individual account. So what I mean by that is if I go down to my sales nominal codes, I'm just going to select one and amend that account and go to my budget. I can see that I've entered a budget for this particular account on a month-by-month basis, the total annual budget being 24,000. But that's just for one sales account. That's for my 31100 Birmingham VAL. I've got a lot more accounts than in that particular report category, and it could be that actually my total sales budget should be 2 million. And just by entering those budgets on an account-by-account basis, it's difficult to tell if I've entered those budgets accurately. What we can do now is enter a report budget category. So if I'm going to give this the budget name of UK sales, the report category that I want to check is report category 31. And here we can see all the nominal accounts that are in that particular report category. I can say here that my budget for UK sales is £1 million. Okay, and which nominal codes do I want to include in that selection process? I'm going to do everything, all my accounts. So I can see that my budget is 1 million. I've actually only allocated £484,000, and hence I still need to enter a budget of £516,000 against any one of these particular nominal codes or combination of nominal codes. So I can save that. And then underneath here we have the amend report category budget. I can recall my UK sales, and if these have changed, it would then refresh and would show me my allocated amount. So let's have a little look at 311 RET ADM. So 311 RET ADM. If I now amend that account, go to my budget, okay, and I'm actually going to increase that to 200,000 or 2 million, doesn't really matter, we'll just see the difference. Okay, go back to my budget criteria, and we can see now that actually I've over allocated something somewhere. Okay, so again I need to review my budgets until my report category budget agrees to my individual account budget. The next thing I'd like to show you is within nominal categories, nominal inquiries, sorry. we have an option here to view nominal structure. And what I like about this is that this option will reflect your profit and loss and your balance sheet. So however that's been designed, that will be reflected within this screen inquiry. You can select a period range that you want to be reporting on. So it's defaulting to the full open periods for the current year. So I'm in 2015, so it's showing me by default range 1 to 10 for 2015. But if I just want to look at the first quarter, I can just change my criteria accordingly. I can also show comparison columns if I want to, the current period range values only, or I can add the same period range for the prior year, or the prior period range 10 to 12, so for the whole year. So if I now display this, it's going to show me the summary of my profit and loss and my balance sheet. And we can see here that my profit before overheads, which I will see on my P&L, is showing me 7 million. If I expand that, I can see that my gross profit is showing 7 million. If I expand that again, that's made up of trading income, and I can see my total sales are 7 million. And if I expand that, I've just got the one heading of sales income, which is then split down between my UK sales and my export sales. All my income is being generated from my UK sales, and if I expand that, I can see all of the individual accounts that make up that figure on my P&L. We have this option here, colour, and if I just click on that and select any of these colours, it just puts the colour on alternate lines. It makes it easier for me to see where the totals and on which account it relates to. I can see that this particular account has my £735,000 assigned to it. I can drill down into the account details, from which, if I go to the Budgets tab, I can see a month-by-month breakdown of the balances on that account. I can drill down even further to the transactions and see all the transactions that make up that £735,000. And if I highlight any one of those, I can drill down even further into the detail, and I can see the full double entry of that transaction. If it was generated from a bank account, I would see the bank account it related to. If it was VATable, I would see the VAT code assigned to that transaction. If it was came from a trader, either a customer or a supplier, I can see those details, so I can see which supplier or customer it has been generated from. And if it was linked to project accounting, I would also see the project that it was relating to as well. So from the top level P&L and balance sheet, we can drill down into individual transactions to try to analyse where those postings have come from and that they're accurate. Now, when we're entering transactions, as I say, we can enter journals, we can pop them on hold, and we can put receipts and payments on via our enter transactions. But I just want to show you the journal templates. This is really useful if you have regular journals that you're wanting to process, and you just need to speed up the process a little bit. I'm going to add a new template, and I'm going to call this depreciation. Okay, and we have these 3 different template types. It can be a list of accounts only. So when I come to do my March depreciation journal, when I open up this template, I will see all of my nominal codes that I want to be posting to for this depreciation posting. It could be value. So if I'm doing straight line depreciation, I know that this particular asset is always going to be depreciated by £100 each month. So as well as having my list of codes, I can also have the relevant debit or credit values in there. It will still allow me to amend that each month. It's not written in stone, but at least we have that template available to us. Then finally we have what's called percentage. It's not so frequently used. The example that I tend to use would be if you're using cost centres and you're going to split management fees between the different cost centres. So what you can do with that is you can select the codes that you want to be doing the journal between, and then you can say, right, my Cardiff cost centre is going to be 25%, my Bristol cost centre is going to be 25%, my London cost centre is going to be 50%. When I then open up my journal template, I would enter any one of those figures and it will recognise the proportion and calculate the rest of the journal values accordingly. Again, it can be overwritten. For this example, I'm going to do a value type template. You can limit the number of uses either to the maximum number of uses or from a start date and an end date. So I'm going to select my nominal codes. There's my new accounts waiting for me. So my plant and machinery depreciation I want to post to on the balance sheet. I also want to post to office equipment depreciation. And if I sort by name, I go down to my Ds. I also want to do on the P&L depreciation and P&L depreciation for plant and machinery. I don't know if those of you noticed, but again, when you're actually searching for a nominal account, you don't have to accept the default account code sequence. By clicking on the name, it will then be a name sequence, and then you can search by name, which sometimes makes it a little clearer. Okay, so what it's asking here for now are the values, so I can say credit there of £100, £200 there, £100 there, and £200 there. Okay. So now when I come to my journal entry, I can say I want to use a template, select my depreciation, and it's brought through those accounts with those values, but I still have the full flexibility that I can change values if I choose to do so. And I can also add additional lines or remove any lines as appropriate. Also within the 2016 version of Sage 200, we now have a fixed asset module. It's very, very simple in its functionality. It's really a case of picking up your spreadsheet that you're currently holding your fixed assets on and actually holding them within Sage 200. What the process will allow is for the automatic depreciation postings to take place on a month-by-month basis. So let's go and have a little look at our fixed asset list. If I create a new asset, we just give it a code. Okay, so I'm going to say this is a fleet car number 2. Description, so CF16 8RT. Okay, that's a registration number. I'm not sure that is a valid one, but it's my registration number I'm using for today's purposes. We populate the initial value, the date it was acquired, when it was last depreciated, and that would only be used if we're bringing in existing assets into our fixed asset register. For a new asset, we would leave that blank. We have 4 different depreciation methods available to us. We have annual and period, reducing and straight line depreciation methods. I'm going to use period straight line. So because I've selected that, it's asking me here for my life span number of periods. So it's I'm going to depreciate it over 5 years, it would be 60 periods that we would enter there. The net book value is currently the same as my initial value. Now again, what we do is we just select the nominal code for the balance sheet depreciation. And we select the profit and loss depreciation account. So again, if I click on name, type in the letter D, it's taken me down to depreciation, and I can select the appropriate nominal code. We have 5 analysis codes available to us. We have a manager, and you can build up your drop-down list of managers. We have location, and you can build up your drop-down list of locations. And then we just have analysis 1, 2, and 3, which are just general analysis codes for you to use as you choose appropriate. And again, you would just select your drop-down list of values. So let's save that and refresh my list. So we now have a new asset on our fixed asset list. Once a month then, we will go into depreciation, so depreciate asset. We select the period that we're wanting to depreciate. So I'm going to stick with our end of current financial year. If you want to depreciate everything, you would select everything. In my example, I'm just going to select the asset that we created this morning. And so you can see here the depreciation amount that it's going to calculate. Now that's £2,000 because it's actually going to catch up the depreciation postings. I said we purchased it on the 1st of January and I'm depreciating up to the end of December. So it's doing a whole year's worth of depreciation. If I select depreciate, it's asking me for my transaction date, which I would just accept the default, and I depreciate that asset. So now if I refresh my list, we can see that we've got depreciation value of £2,000, net book value of £8,000, and our initial cost was £10,000. So it's keeping a record, an up-to-date net book value of our assets. And if we also have a little look at the postings, okay, we can see here all the postings that have been generated for that depreciation. So it's automatically done the nominal postings for our vehicle depreciation. Okay. It doesn't link to any other modules, so if you're buying an asset through the purchase ledger, for example, you would enter the invoice as normal, but then come into the fixed asset module and add your new assets through this particular module. So as I say, it's very, very simple in what it does, but it is better than nothing which was there previously, and it does bring all your data into Sage rather than having another spreadsheet to manage your fixed assets. Okay. In period end routines, there is an option there called account maintenance, and this is also new. In previous versions, when you ran your year end in Sage 200, it would come up with a prompt and ask you if you wanted to archive your profit and loss transactions from the previous financial year. This is no longer prompted. You have to come into the account maintenance to run that routine. So at the end of your financial year, if you're wanting to remove your profit and loss transactions, you come into account maintenance and you just tick this particular option. Also, what Sage used to do at the end when you ran your month end or your year end within the nominal ledger, it would automatically archive transactions depending on the date that you said you wanted to keep transactions for. Again, that has been removed from that process, and you have to come into account maintenance in period end routines and manually tick the archive the balance sheet and profit loss transactions, and you select a date that you want to archive to. So I'm going to do enter 14. That will be absolutely fine. Now what this is, it's not going to archive everything up to that particular date. If you're saying you want to keep transactions for 12 months, it will look at this date and it will say we're keeping transactions for 12 months, and hence it will archive everything up to the 31st of December 2013. So it takes into consideration not only the date that you're archiving up to, but the number of months that you want to keep transactions for. Okay. So that's archiving. I'm not going to run it now because it does take a few minutes, and so I'll just be sitting here in silence while we just watch it process. But again, as part of your year-end process, if you want to remove the profit and loss transactions, you come in here and you select the remove profit and loss transactions. We're going to have a little look at some of the reports that are available to you within the nominal ledger. Reports are split into 3 sections. We have account analysis, financial statements, and budget comparisons. I'm going to start off with the financial statements, because what we have here are a number of trial balances, and people are unaware really of what the differences are. So I'm just going to go through what the different trial balance reports will show. First of all, I'm going to run the trial balance summary. And if I were to just run that for the current period and say OK, this is going to show me all my nominal accounts, but in cost center sequence. So it can be a little confusing. So what we have here are all of our nominal codes that are not in a cost center. We then have all the ADM nominal codes. We're then coming to Birmingham, London, Manchester, RET, and so we get a mixture of nominal codes for each cost center. The figures are still accurate, and if that's the way you prefer to process and see everything in a cost center sequence, then this is the report that I recommend that you run. However, if I were to run the trial balance posting accounts for the same period, this is going to show me my nominal accounts in a nominal account sequence. So here I have all of my balance sheet accounts at the top of the screen of the report, and as I scroll down, you'll see now I have all of my sales accounts, all my 31 accounts, and then for each cost center and department, then I have all my rent for each cost center and department. So it's showing it in that sequence as opposed to my cost center sequence. If I go back up and run my trial balance detailed, again for the same sequence, for the same date, okay, this is showing me my accounts. down, in cost center sequence, but this time it's showing me my group accounts as well, and it's showing me my subtotals on a group by group basis. Now this can get a little muddled when you're using cost centers and departments and your group accounts. So this is why we would recommend that in this instance, I mean, it gives you the right figures, but if you were to run the trial balance by number detailed for the same period, again, it's showing you the group accounts and the totals for each group account, but it's now in an account number sequence. So we have our group total for sales, as we would expect for all of our cost centers and departments. Okay. The trial balance by number summary for the same option will show us literally in cost center and department sequence, okay, but without a breakdown by report category. Okay, so quick review then. So the posting accounts shows us our trial balance in account number sequence, whereas the detailed and the summary will show us in cost center sequence. The trial balance by number detailed and by number summary will show them in account number sequence, but with our group accounts being summarized and totaled on those reports. We also have, as well as our profit and loss and balance sheet reports that have always been there, there's now a new report available to us, which is the cash flow report. If I run this report for my period January 14 to October 14, oops, a bit far there, that'll be fine. What we see here is a combination of balance sheet and profit and loss accounts all on the same report. This is purely based on the budgets that you've got set up for your nominal accounts, and it's looking at the budget figures for our movements of cash, and it's looking at the actual figure for our nominal bank accounts. So what we're seeing here is our opening balance for our bank accounts in January 14 is £300,000. We're expecting this income to come in, and we're expecting these outgoings to go out, and hence our closing balance would be £528,000. This is then carried forward as our opening balance for February. More transactions are generated. We have a new closing balance for the end of February, and that would be our opening balance for March, and so on and so forth. What we're looking at here, so this £737,000 income that we're expecting for March relates to the budget that we have for January 2014 for sales. And what I mean by that is that we're saying that in January we're expecting our sales figure to be £737,000. However, due to the length of time that it takes our debtors to actually pay those invoices, we're not expecting the money to actually hit our bank account until 2 months later. And that's all set up within the report layouts and the design in our financial statements layouts. So let's have a little look at that design. In our utilities and ledger setup, we have financial statement layout. Profit and loss and balance sheet has always been there. We now have this new option, which is cash flow. What we do here is we design our cash flow report exactly the same way that we would design our profit and loss and balance sheet. So we include any text, single account groups, multiple account groups that we choose to do so. And as I say, that could be a combination of profit and loss and balance sheet reports if we accounts if we choose to do so. And we can also add subtotals as we did previously. What we do at the bottom of the screen here is we define which nominal accounts are our bank accounts that we want to be included within our cash flow forecast. So I've highlighted all of my accounts, my bank and cash accounts, US dollars, deposit account, current account, but you could be more specific and just focus on a single bank account. We also define our budget shift, and this is where I was explaining that our budget for sales in January was £700,000. But because we've defined a budget shift of 2 months, that income is going to be reflected 2 months later in March, and hence the income that's reported is going to be £700,000 within March and not within January. So if, sorry, lost my train of thought there a little bit, sorry. So if I now go and have a little look at one of my budgets, okay, for the current year, okay, this is where we will see that our budget figure for that account for January would actually be moved on to our March cash flow. In this example, they're all the same because I was setting up some test data the other day. So it moves that budget on by the number of the budget shift periods that you define within the layout. So if I just run that report again for the same periods, okay. Okay, this figure here, the opening balance, is the opening balance of the nominal bank accounts that we defined within the layout. These lines are defined by the lines we include on the cash flow report in the financial layout. And the figures that reflect here are the budget shifted figures for the budgets for those accounts on that particular category code. So in our example, the 2-month budget shift. Okay, let's have a little more at some other reports that are available to us. We have our daybook report. The daybook report is based on your posting date of transactions. Your transaction listing is based on a transaction date for a transaction. So today is the 31st of March. If I enter a transaction today dated the 1st of March, then if I run my daybook report for today's date, that transaction would be reported. If I run my transaction listing for today's date, that transaction will not be reported because I dated it the 1st of March and not today's date. We have a couple of other reports that I was going to just show you. At the end of your financial year, when you've closed down your year-end accounts and you then subsequently enter your auditor's adjustments, to maintain visibility of those adjustments, there's this report here, the previous year journal listing, which if I just run that will show you any prior year journals that you've made within your accounts. Just to confirm that you can, so you confirm you enter the journal, you can run this report just to make sure you entered the correct figures. We also have a manual journal listing, and this is basically a list of all the journals you've entered manually through the Nominal Ledger. They're journals that have not been generated from any other module, purely from the Nominal Ledger, again just for reference purposes. And our budget comparison reports will show you detailed summary and individual budget variance. So if I do my detailed budgets, if I do it by number, sorry, I prefer the number option. Okay, and okay to that. It's going to show me all my accounts, okay, in account number sequence. I should have selected one, showing me what my budget is on a month-by-month breakdown, what my actual figures are, what the difference is in value, and what my percentage difference is as well. So I've got full visibility of any remaining budgets and any differences. Within the financial statements, okay, we also have budget comparison reports there as well. So on the profit and loss month-to-date, year-to-date budgets, if I say okay to that, okie dokie, it shows us the budget figure, our actual, year-to-date budget and year-to-date actual. Okay, just a few more things I want to draw your attention to. Within the Nominal Ledger utilities, we have Ledger Setup, and if I were to just go into my Ledger Settings, okay, I want to just identify the budget profiles. If your organization, if your trading is quite cyclical, so maybe your sales, 50% of your sales take place the 3 months prior to Christmas, or maybe you're seasonal in as far as it's a summer season sort of organization that you're running, you can actually put in a budget profile. And what this means is that all of these are percentages. So what percentage of your annual budget do you want to be apportioned on a month-by-month basis? The total budget has to come to 100, so you can define any percentages for each month. When you enter your budget, then you will pop in your annual budget, and Sage will automatically apportion that for each month based on the profile that you select. So it's a good way of speeding up the process of apportioning your budgets. If I go to options, there is this one option here, start with account number only or specify combination. The only thing that this does, okay, if I were to sort of tick on specify the combination and then say OK to that, the first thing I showed you was within nominal accounts and generate new accounts. If I now tick on that, it's telling me that it's not enabled. So that button purely gives you access to this generate new accounts option or not. I'm not quite sure why it's parameterized, but I'm sure there's a very good reason, and that's what that one actually does. Okie dokie. As I mentioned, the very first thing that I showed you within our nominal accounts was how to generate new accounts for cost centers and departments if you're wanting to create just one new account. Within the ledger setup, however, we have here create accounts for cost center and department. So if you're opening up a new branch within your organization, you don't have to set up all of the nominal codes individually for that new branch. This will allow you to actually create that en masse. There's lovely. It's asking us the generate type. Is it just a new cost center, or just a new department, or are we creating both a new cost center and a new department? I'm going to just select cost center for now to show you how that process works. It's asking us for the code. So what's the name or the code for the new cost center? So I'm going to have new, and it's going to be for report. It's now asking me for the source. So which cost center would I want to replicate to create the nominal codes for this new cost center? So I'm going to select my Manchester cost center. So as soon as I say OK, Sage in its wisdom is now going to go through all the nominal counts that have been existing rather for Manchester and replicate those for my Newport cost center. So if I just sort by cost center, and if I scroll down, we should know, whoopsie, I've gone too far. Page up. We now have these 4 new accounts that have been created, and they replicate our Manchester cost center exactly. That's a very simple cost center structure, but in reality you would have, I'm sure, dozens, even hundreds of nominal codes, so the time saving is quite immense by using that particular option. And then finally, the last thing that I want to show you is that when you process your VAT return, the last thing that it does is ask you for the next VAT return date. And if you were to make a mistake, you can't then change that date within the VAT routine itself. If I go to my period end routines and my VAT analysis, you see here I can't change that date. My current period return, I can't change that date. There is a separate option that you need to go into, which is within the Nominal Ledger Utilities, and then amend VAT period end date, and then select VAT period end date. And it's from there that you can then change the date to whatever it should be, 31st of the 7th. Oh, I've forgotten what it was. Let's ignore that. Let's go back in again, sorry. 14, so 31st of the 7th, 14. 31st of the 7th, 14. Just help if you can type it in correctly. Just say OK to that. So now when I go back into my VAT analysis, my date has changed to the next month, and the figures will all be updated to reflect the change in that VAT return end date. You can't change the VAT date back a period if you've already entered transactions within that period. If there are no VAT transactions, it's not a problem. Sage will allow you to do that. But if there are transactions, it will warn you, and you won't be able to change the date. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this morning's webinar. Just a quick recap. We've had a little look at generating new accounts. We've had a look at report category budgets, some inquiries in the view nominal structure inquiry, creating templates, but also the fixed asset module within the nominal ledger. Within our period end routines, we've had a look at how we can archive transactions and delete our P&L transactions at the end of our financial year. We've had a look at some reports, the previous year journals, the manual journals, but also the differences between all those trial balances that are available to you. Within the settings, we've had a little look at the budget profiles, creating accounts for cost centres and departments en masse, and also amending our VAT period end date. The cash book bank reconciliation, that's the new version, is available within version 2016, and that's what we've been looking at today. So I hope you've all found something useful. Our next webinar will be at the end of April, and the plan is to go through stock control and some of the sort of more obscure and different features that are available to you within stock control. So I hope you can join me then. But until then, have a good weekend and happy processing.